Welcome to today's webinar. Today's recording is going to be on the FDOT Design and 3D Modeling course guide. We're going to be focusing on chapters 1 and 7. The two chapters involved there are building your existing terrain and existing features, and chapter 7 will be on viewing cross sections. In today's session, I've got a lot of information to sort of cover with you. First, we're going to look at building an existing terrain from the files that we get from survey, and then look at the actual terrain elements and the different display options that you have with terrain features. Then we'll move into basically creating a model of your existing features for cross sections. Specifically, we'll kind of divide that into several categories: existing pavements and sidewalks or driveways or shoulders for that matter, existing curbs you want to display, existing right-of-way lines, and even existing utilities. And then we'll go into the view cross-section tool and look at the existing features from a cross-section perspective. I'll show you how you can go in and set the view window properties and some of the navigation methods. What we won't be covering today is cutting cross-sections or plotted cross-sections for existing features. That will be covered in another session for creating cross-section sheets, and that's part of the plan development workflow. The next thing I wanted to kind of show is this is from basically a screen copy from the PPM, which is what requires or what sort of gives us our guidance for what is should be shown on cross-sections as far as the existing information. And this has been in the PPM for many years now, and so it hasn't changed, but what has changed is the method for getting this information ready to be cut and shown on cross sections. So you see here it says that we should focus on showing below ground portions of existing features such as pavements, curves, sidewalks. Also any parallel underground utilities should be shown, and they should be designated with the correct verification notification. And then also right-of-way limits should be shown symbolically, and all of these can be created in what would be a existing features model, and then when you slice through the model you'll get to see all these on a particular cross section. And that's what we hope to cover today. So I'm going to get into sort of go through the workflow that we've established in the design and modeling course guide. The first thing is to build the existing terrain. And before we can do that, we typically get from survey either a TIN file or a DAT file or a design file with the triangles plotted in them, and all of those are good. However, in order to utilize it in SS3 and to build an existing terrain element or terrain model feature from it, it needs to be imported into a terrain element. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file out here, and I'm going to use the create file utility. I'll make sure this is a roadway type file, and I'll go find the actual terrain model, this one right here, and I'm going to put it over in the it will actually get placed in the, I want to put it over in the survey folder is where I'd like to put it. So at any rate, let me just place it right in here. So it's going to be a GDDTM01 file. I'm going to create it. It was successfully created, and when I open it, I'll be in a brand new file. And usually you need to go in and set the plot scale. It's not really important for this particular file, but I'll go ahead and set it to 1 and choose OK, and then close this or choose OK. And once I have a new file here, it is actually a 3D file. Then I'll go into the task for terrain models, which is part of the civil tools. You can get to this particular tool a couple different ways. You can go to the tools and find, when you're up in the Geopack SS3 environment, you can go to terrain models, create from file here, or you can, we've been recommending is you kind of use these little icons here, and this would be in the terrain model civil tools task group. And the first one is create from file. And what I'm going to do is go locate in the survey folder. There should be a couple of files that we got from survey, and the one I'm going to import here is a gddtm.tin file. When I go ahead and choose done for selecting the file, it'll bring me up this import terrain tools, and I'm going to go ahead and set the feature definition here. You want to set your source to US survey feet, and you want to set the feature definition to the terrain display, DTM existing, since this is an existing, and there really isn't anything else to set here. And then you'll just choose the import button, and what this will do is it'll import that TIN file into a microstation terrain element type. It's that simple, and then just choose fit, and you can see this is actually a boundary. When you first load in a existing terrain, by default it's set to a boundary, but if you want to display anything about a terrain, all you have to do is sort of click on this boundary here and go to this first properties icon. And when you open the properties icon, you can see that there are several things that can be displayed. So you don't have to basically create contours. It essentially is just another display of the terrain that's in the file. So if you see here that the triangles are off, you can click on one of these and set the value to on, and they turn on. You can double click on the word and they toggle on and off. So if I double click on contours, now you're seeing I'm seeing the existing contours. And if I go back to properties, I can turn that on or off. This is one way of looking at the properties. If you click on it and go to properties this way and bring up your element info, this also shows you another method for turning on and off different things about it. It also gives the specific information of where the actual terrain level is, and some of the other more important information that you might be interested in. Okay, so basically that's how you get in your existing surface. Now we're going to focus in on building your existing features. And in order to do that, we're going to create another file. So just like we did with the legacy workflow, in order to create existing features with the criteria method, if there was any kind of discrepancies, you would put them in a GKLNRD file. And for this workflow with building a terrain model for the existing features, we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Actions, Create Edit File. I'm going to scroll down here to where I see the Geopack lines file. Here it is. And I've already got one out here, so I'm going to create the second one. And then I'm going to choose Create, and then Open. And I'll choose OK. And this, I can just leave this to 50 scale, it's fine. And then the first thing I've got to do is reference in my topo file and my terrain file. So I'll go to my references. I'll attach the topo file, which is over in the survey folder. I'm going to open that one up, turn off raster display, and go ahead and reference that. And then I'll reference in this new GDTM in the roadway folder that I just created this morning. And I'll open that one up, and again I'll just attach that one. And then I'll close this, go ahead and choose Fit. Okay, so the first step in basically creating the existing features in this particular workflow is to bring in the line work that you would want to basically delineate existing features. So there's a couple of ways to do that. I mean, traditionally you could go to the reference file and you could do merge to master, but you would have to essentially go into your reference file levels for that topo file, turn off levels, all except for the ones you wanted to bring in, and then use the merge to master. So what we did in the here in the ECSO office is we had one of the developers create a new tool to do this, and it's called this Copy Reference File Levels. And you can find that under the Design Apps, Reference File, Copy Reference File Levels. The level that I first want to bring in, you can bring these in all at once, but I'm just going to focus in on the pavement, asphalt, edge of pavements for the time being. And I'm going to choose to add this to the list, and then I'm going to process. And what it's going to do is basically go out and copy those lines into this file. And when it finishes, I should have nothing is being displayed, so it's turning off the topo elements. And well, I know we've been working on enhancements to the tool, so maybe this time I'll just go ahead and do it the typical way that we would do it. And what I would do is go to the topo file, do all off, pick the pavement asphalt EOP lines, and then essentially do a merge to master on this file. And pick this view, and now it copies these into the active file, and then it would actually turn off that reference file. So what we're going to do is attach that back again. So I'll go back to the survey folder, choose open, and attach it again. And then I just want to turn it off for the time being, but I want to have it still attached. All right, so then essentially, like I said, you would want to delineate the line work that you would want to create essentially a shape of. And in order for it to create a shape with our flood element tool, we're going to, you need to basically close these places where you would want the shape. In other words, these two lines don't necessarily close, so you would want to draw some extra line work in there. And for this whole existing features workflow, we have a task, actually a workflow task over here in our plans development section. So if you were to go to the task and pick, like I said, FDOT plans development, go to this existing features. You see here is where you can do the copy reference file levels utility, and then the next step would be the place Smartline. Before I do that, I'm going to use my Alt key and then click on this line, and that sets the active level. And then I'll place a line, and all I'm really going to do is clean up some of this line work to basically close a shape. I don't know if I actually got that one. I think I did. Click that one there, and I would want to delineate these two roadways as separate pavement features, existing pavement features. So I'm going to draw a line across here, and then also I'm going to draw a line across here. And then in order to differentiate, I could also differentiate between what is a side street like this, and also what is a driveway, you know. But essentially there is some line work that you may have to put in here. These are the seam lines, and not to worry, we're not modifying the topo file, we're just modifying this lineworks file so that we can get in the shapes that we would want for building. And the last thing I want to do is our project limits. I mean, you could go all the way up to here, so I could create a line at the intersection of the terrain model and this white line here, so I could draw one there, do the same thing here, and then I'm ready to go out and create some shapes. And let's see if there was, I'm going to shift this view down like this so I can kind of see this, have a little more real estate to work with. The next thing I'll do is use the flood element, but flood element uses the active level, so I'm going to go ahead and set the active level to a miscellaneous 0, something we can see, or miscellaneous 3 rather, this green shape. And then I'll use the flood element tool, which is under the I believe it's under the modify, no, not the modify, it's the group tool. You can go to this group holes, or I'm sorry, create region is what we're looking for. And we've gone ahead and added the shortcuts to these tools by just going through this existing features task, and you see this one is actually added to the end here. And then I'm going to choose flood, keep the original. Fill type, I'm going to choose none for now, and then I can set sort of narrow or widen this gap for you know, finding elements that are close to one another, so 0.1. And then I'm just going to data point in the middle of the shape, and it will draw a shape when I accept it in this boundary. If I do the same thing here, go ahead and select the tool again and select in this area, you'll notice that I get this error, no enclosing region found. And that's mainly because I'm not, I don't have the entire area within my view. That's a little issue. So if I just hold in this area with the cursor and then roll out till I get the whole view, and then click in it, it will actually pick up the shape. You just have to keep your mouse steady, and then it will basically build that shape. Now the other thing that I might want to do is, and I might also want to go ahead and bring in well, before I do that. So the next step in this whole workflow would be to go ahead and create the, let's go, I'll just show you the slides again, and we'll go back to, so we've basically copied the line work from the topo file. We've created the shapes. The next step is going to be to clip a terrain and then apply a surface template to it. All right. So if I just get back to the design file, the next step would be to go ahead and clip the terrain. Now I'm just going to focus on these two shapes. You can do them one at a time, or you can do them all the shapes at the, in your workflow. It all depends. But once you see the basic 4 steps involved, it's it's a repetitive process over and over. So the next thing I'll do is do a clip terrain, and this is the terrain tool for clipping terrains. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to clip the existing surface with this shape such that you only have the triangles of the existing surface within the boundary of the shape. And because these lines correspond with points on the terrain, you're going to get clean triangle breaks across these lines. So when it asks for the reference surface, you can either select on this terrain model or you can pick it from the list. And in order for that to be able to be selected, you need to go ahead and turn the locate on in this reference file, which should be on. This is snap, locate. Okay, so if I click on this boundary now, it works. All right. So I'm going to click on this boundary, wait for this glyph, and set it as active, and then use this clip terrain tool. And if I click on the boundary now, it should populate it in the list here. And once I have it in the list, then this is going to be basically clipping all the external triangles on the outside, and it wants to know the shape that I'm going to clip. So I'm going to click this shape right here and reset, and I'll just do one at a time. Do a vertical offset, use the clipping method external, and I wasn't paying attention. I should have done a couple other things. So I can do a Control Z and undo that. And I'm going to locate the reference surface again. I'll locate the clipping. But before I do that, I want to set this feature to a DTM proposed and give it a name. And I'm going to call this DTM underbar existing underbar US 98, because that's the route number for this. And if I tab through that, I'm going to reset and set the offsets external. And now you see the difference. One, it was a green triangles, this is blue triangles. Using this name DTM proposed essentially creates it as a construction class type terrain, and construction class terrains can be, the top of it can be turned off because we don't want to see duplicate line work there, at least with the terrain elements. So even though it says proposed, it's still an existing, it's an existing surface. So don't let the name fool you. Whenever you're building these existing terrains, I would use DTM proposed just for the simple fact that it's a construction class, and that'll become important when it comes time to cutting cross sections. And then I can click the next, do the same thing on this other one, and click this one and change the name to, this would be SR61. And if I hit the tab key, it'll make sure that it stores that, and reset, and then no horizontal, no vertical offset, and external method. And essentially what I've just done is clipped what was the original whole surface in between these two terrains. And so I have separate terrains for these two roadways. And if I use the F2 key, it will bring up the 3D model, and this is a plan view of what I'm working in. And it just so happens that the terrain is a reference file to this 2D view, but here is the actual 3D view that got created. So now you're seeing at least the top surface of these two boundaries, and if I click on one, you see they're separated. So they're 3D surfaces out there. And then the next step would be to, as you see when I turn back on the topo file, and I'll have to attach it again. that, and I didn't want to attach that one, cancel, I'm sorry. I want to actually be in this view when I attach the file. So it's still attached, and I just want to display it. You'll see that I have, if I turn off in this view these triangles, by doing the F7, now you see the importance of it. I have these islands in here. So these islands are on another level called CGEP underbar EP. So again, I could go through the same methodology of picking the topo file, turning everything off, finding the CGEP, turning just that one on, and then doing the merge to master this way, clicking the view, and now these elements reside in this file. And the reason I would need those is because now I'm going to add these as an internal clipping reference. So in order to do that, what I'll do is go to this same clipping tool, and I'll pick the reference terrain, which is going to be, in this case, this terrain, this existing SR61 terrain. And then the clipping element is going to be internal, and I'm going to call this underbar clip just to keep track of them, okay? And instead of using external, I'm going to use internal. And if I had multiple internals, I could basically add them all at once, which I'll do in the next step. So I'm going to essentially click this element, and then reset, no offset, and no vertical offset. And the clipping method is internal. It'll create a new terrain for me. And it actually displayed it out there, but because of the original SR61 is out there, you don't see it. So that's where the Project Explorer comes in handy. If you just hit your F11 key in the workspace, it will open up Project Explorer, and we can look at what's in this design file. So the civil model is really where all of the elements that you place, or all the features that you place. So you can see that in this design file, I have 2 terrain models. Well, I thought I did. I must not have executed that command properly. So let's try that again. Let me turn on these construction elements again, and then I'll use the tool, and you should see it get created over here. So I'm going to locate the terrain, which is this one, and then I'm going to locate the clipping element, which would be this one and this one. And maybe because it's not a complete shape, which I might have to do. And then, that's exactly what it is. I forgot one step, so let me turn that off. I need to make shape boundaries of those. So let me go back to the create shape and click in this. It's still set to miscellaneous 0. So I'll click there and accept it. And while I'm here, I'm going to click here and accept it. And I'm going to click in here, which it didn't like because it wants a line. So I'm going to add a line over here, and that's okay if it's a green line. And then I'll create a shape in there, a shape in there. Okay. Now I can go back to the clipping tool, and I can select the terrain, turn that back on, select this terrain, and I want to select this line here, reset, and reset when I'm done adding, and accept these methods. Now you see I have this clip terrain out here. So if you notice, once I delete the original one, the clipped one will be the only one left. So I can go ahead and choose to delete this one, and now you see I have a terrain with a hole in it. And I'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to create a new terrain, essentially using the clipping tool, and I'm going to select this here, and then I'm going to make sure that the name of it is, instead of SR61 clip, it's going to be US 98 clip. And if I want to use the same convention, US 98, and tab through that so that it stores it. And I'm selecting the reference terrain, and now I'm just going to click these internal reference clippings. And I would also want to probably have on the traffic separator and clip that as well. So let me get out of here and turn on traffic, or add in here the traffic separator. Actually, Yeah, I'll do the traffic separator because that's part of the workflow. So if that tool was working, I'd be using that tool, but let me just go ahead and attach the reference again. And choose OK. I'll go to my levels, turn this off, find the topo file, turn everything off, turn on the traffic separators. I just sort by used, usually down here.
There it is.
Sure, it's right here. There it is. Oh, there it is. So I turn that on. And then I can use the F7 key to turn off the triangles, flood this, essentially this element, and accept that one. Now I can go back and use the clipping tool, turn those triangles back on, use the clipping tool to select this element and make sure it's clipped. Then I'm going to locate all these clipping. So I'm going to click on this one, the traffic separator, and this boundary here. And once I have those, I can reset, choose 0 and 0, and it basically creates the new clipping. And there should be a US 98 clip, so I can get rid of the original one that I clipped without the holes. And now you see I've got the clipped terrain out there that way. Now, once you have these, basically these pavement areas delineated, because in here we have traffic separator, and here we have probably some type of a curb median, and then an island possibly over here. Again, your topo file is going to help you delineate what's what. So once you have those, then what we're going to do is apply what's called a surface template. A surface template is nothing more than depth and a feature to a terrain surface. And it is found in the civil tools under the 3D geometry, but we also added it right here. Apply a surface template to a terrain. And there's two things you have to do. You have to locate the terrain and then apply the template. So if I click that there, choose no, and if I pick my template, all I have to do is go Alt down to bring up the Pick Template dialog. And over in the FDOT workspace, we've created a folder, a new folder that says Existing Feature Templates. And these are all of the features all of the templates that you'll need for building an existing features model. So in this case, it's the pavement asphalt existing, and you can see it's nothing more than what we typically show as the depth of pavement on an existing pavement. Choose OK, and go ahead and click on it, and then it'll show me the shape, and I'll data point to accept that. And notice that in my model over here, all this turned red. No, I'm not trying to build a Spider-Man web or anything. It's just, if you look at it, there's actually a depth underneath the original what was on top. And then I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll go back to that Apply Surface Template, and I'll click on this terrain, and then choose No to use that same existing data point to accept that one. And now I've got essentially the same thing with this one. And in order to turn off this top skin, all I have to do is set this view active, choose F7, and now I'm just looking at the existing, what is the existing pavement structure under that existing roadway, those two roadways. All right. If I wanted to add a traffic separator, I could do the same thing. I could go to the Apply Surface Template and locate the, well, before I do that, I have to create a terrain for this traffic separator element. So it's the same workflow. I just go to Clip Terrain, and anytime that I want this to be its own boundary of a terrain, it's external. If I want to put a hole in something, it's internal. So then I can either pick from the list or go out and select this edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially cut out all the triangles except for what's in this traffic separator area. Then I'll click on that. I'll reset when I'm done, set a vertical and horizontal offset to 0. And now you see I've got triangles in here. And in order to apply a surface template, they're actually over here too. It's just that I had that construction class element turned off. See, so now I have the actual triangles inside there as their own little terrain. And I wasn't careful, so when I built that terrain, I didn't really give it a name, so it probably
overwrote the other
called
one.
it this US 98 clip 1, and because the US 98 was the last one in the dialog. So I can always just rename it here, go to properties, and change the name of it in this feature. Just change the name of it right here to US 98 underbar traffic separator. And then when I data point, it won't show up right away, but as soon as I get back into the Project Explorer, and if I hover over it, it'll tell me what the current name of it is. And then I'm going to apply the same surface template to it, so I can pick this terrain now. And if I hover over it long enough, or wait over it, or pause over the edge of it, it will show me the details about it. Then I can click it, and then ask me for an external boundary. In this case, the template I want to use, again, if I do the Alt down, it will bring up the picker for the templates. I can change it to a traffic separator existing template, which is going to change the symbology. And then I go ahead and choose to accept it and data point, and I basically place the traffic separator. And again, I just turn off those construction elements with F7. Make sure this view's on, and choose F7. And now I've got the traffic separator in here on top of my pavement. So I'm building it as I go. Now let's talk about how to build these curbs. That's sort of the next part of the slides here. And what you've got to do for that is, let me just show you the slides again. For curbs, what you're going to do is copy the curb backs from the topo file. And then you've got to do what we call set a linear feature, or make it a civil feature to the curb back and to the pavement existing edge, so that we can create a profile of the back. And we're going to set the existing ground line of the back curb profile as the active line. And once we have a profile and a civil geometry element, then we can apply what's called a linear template to it. And because a curb has a variable depth, the back of curb is higher or is deeper. I mean, it's all going to be level at the bottom, but because you can't just basically project a constant depth at both the edge of the curb and the back of the curb, we need to use this linear template sort of workflow. So I'll go through it a little slow with this. And then you're going to apply a corridor reference to essentially stretch the default template to match the existing edge of pavement. Okay, so if I go back to the design file, I'll kind of show you that workflow. The first thing we're going to need is these curb back lines. So again, I'll go to references and I'll attach the topo file. Actually, the topo file is still there. Actually, that is probably for view 2. Let's see here. No, it shows it's there, but I don't think it is. Okay. So let me just attach it again. Sometimes the software has stage fright in the middle of a demonstration, or in the middle of a webinar, I guess is what I should say. But that's all right. And I'm going to choose open, and I'm going to choose OK. All right, so now those came in, and I'll go to this topo file, and now I'm going to essentially turn on the curb back EP lines and turn off everything else for this topo. I see what happened. They were all turned off. So let me detach that one, and I'll work with this one. Turn everything off. Sometimes it's operator error too, I'll admit. Alright, so now that I've got the curb back lines turned on only, then I'm going to do the merge to master here again. And wait for the prompt to select the view. and it says it merged them in, so I can, if I select on it, it should tell me what the line is. All right, so the first step was to copy them into the file. The next step is going to be, so I have them here, I have them over here, I have them here. So the next thing we're going to do is basically create a civil feature from them so that we can cut a profile along them. In order for them to be, well, actually you could set a profile on it, but I'm not sure if you can run a linear template unless they're civil features. So you can use this set feature tool, which is this next step over here on this W row, set feature. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select a linear feature from these are showing all utility features. So what we want to do is go up to close the utilities for now, go to Plan 2D, and in the curb and gutter, there is a curb back linear style. And in order to do that, you can select the elements individually, or you could have done them by level. Since we only have 4 of them, I'll go ahead and select them individually, provided that you've got clean topo line work. And then reset, and it now makes them civil back existing features, or curb back existing features. And then in order to get them to show up, what you would do is go in the model, you got a couple more things you've got to do. Go to the open profile. So if you click on a civil feature, you can always go to open profile. And since this terrain is the active terrain, it will show the profile in this view. It's not going to show it as green just because the actual display of the profile feature for this is just set to a default. So all you have to do is click to set this as the active profile. So what that is the existing ground line at the back of curb line, okay? Because that's essentially what the profile that is. And if I zoom out now, you'll see there's actually a 3D line string, if I click on it over here, that got created as soon as I hit the set active over here, okay? So I'm gonna do the same thing with this one, and you'll see it appear over here in this hole right here. If I click this line and open its profile view, and because this is the active terrain, I'm always going to get a profile of where this line cuts across the existing. And then I can go ahead and choose set active, and I'll get a 3D line string out here as well. It actually shows up as a shape because that's actually a shape. And I can do the same thing on this one. I can click this, go to the profile view, set this as active, and I will get basically another shape or another hole over here. Okay, they're shown as shapes because this view is set to display illustration, and so anything that's a shape is going to illustrate as a shaded object. If I were to go to a wireframe, you'd see it's just nothing more than a 3D shape, but because it's this one here didn't have a element on the back side that was part of this shape. So all right, so then the next step will be to essentially set these edge of pavement lines, set a feature on these edge of pavement lines. So I've got this this reference file here being displayed. I want to turn this off for this view. So in view 1, if I go to the reference file, you'll see the 3D view is referenced and displaying. If I go ahead and uncheck that, now I'm just seeing the 2D elements. The 3D file is still over here, but it just makes it easier to pick things when it's not on. So what I'm going to do next is set feature as pavement existing on these shapes. So I'm going to go to this set feature tool and find the pavement existing feature. I'm going to click on here, and why it's important to do this is because in the template for the curb, it actually has a target or what's called a corridor reference for this particular feature, pavement existing. So let's see, I also need to do it for this shape right here. And then when I reset, it will basically place those as pavement existings. Now I can use the linear template tool, which is this one right here, because in order to apply a linear template, it has to be a civil geometry element and it needs to have an active profile. Once you have that, then I can place basically a shape around that, a template shape around the perimeter of this line, and it basically will fill in the what normally would be the bottom side of the curb, the back and bottom, and sort of front, anything but the top, because the existing terrain will fill in whatever the top is. So I'll apply this linear template, click on the element, and then I have to pick the template, again Alt down, and in the same uh, existing pavement or existing features templates is a curb existing, and it's going to show you a picture of what that is. The green point is the point that the template's going to follow, so that's essentially the top back of the curb, and then it draws the back side, the bottom, and then the front side will intercept the active terrain, or the active terrain, in this case this boundary. And then all we have to do is, since this has a corridor reference target, we just add the existing edge of pavements as a corridor reference, and it will basically stretch the shape out. So all I have to do is pick that template first and go ahead and choose, and then I give it a start and stop, but I want it to do the entire element, so I just Alt on both the selections for start and stop. And then the next thing it's going to ask is how to reflect, and we want it to go outwards, so I'll go ahead and choose that. And I've been saying use a 1 degree sweep angle just to make it tighter. And now you'll see that it's actually created this little trough out here. But the trough isn't accurate yet because we need to add this as a reference to that. So in order to do that, I've got to turn back on my construction class elements, because this is now what's called a template boundary handle. And then all I do is go to the add corridor references. I select this particular what's called a corridor, or in this case linear template corridor. I'll pick this pavement existing edge as a reference, and when I reset, you'll see that the curb goes all the way out there. Apparently there's a little issue with the end station there, but essentially now I've basically stretched that out to the existing edge of the pavement, so it's as wide as it needs to be. And then essentially that's how you do curbs. I would go ahead and continue the same thing here and continue it up here, and I can do the same thing, so you can watch me do it on this one over here. Is again, I would just go to the linear templates, I would locate the element, use the curb existing. It's going to ask for a start station. I'm going to lock it to the beginning, lock it to the end, give it a reflection, so I want it to go outside, sweep angle, and now I've done the same thing here. And then all you do is use the add corridor reference, select the corridor, pick the reference that you want to add to stretch it to, reset, and now the curb stretches out to the existing. Okay, so far so good. We've got traffic separators, we've got the pavement. You could basically do the same thing with your edge of shoulders. One thing that we did add was, how do you change the depth of one of your surfaces for your existing? So all I would have to do is hit this edit and applied surface template, and what this will do is it'll bring the template back up for that particular for this particular existing pavement section. And then if you go to the active template tab, once it brings the template up, you can go to the parametric constraints. This is one way of doing it. If you select on the pavement thickness, this is a label that sets the depth for 2 different points. Or you could click on the point properties here and change it, but I'm just recommending you go to the active template, click on EOP pavement thickness, and then change it from, in this case, 0.667. I'll just change it to negative 4 divided by 12, and it will do the math for me. When I choose OK, and then choose OK here, now it went ahead, and you'll notice that these two are not the same depth. And if I rotate around, you'll see that in fact this shape is one depth and this shape is another depth. So that's how easy it is to change the depth of one of these existing features. Okay, I guess the next couple things would be, let me just bring the slideshow back up. So far we've done the existing pavements. Sidewalk you do the same way. Shoulders you would do the same way as far as creating the shapes, clipping the terrain, editing or applying a surface template to it. Existing curbs, you basically bring in the back a curb line, you set a linear feature as curb back, and then you set a linear feature on the pavement edge existing. You go ahead and make the existing profile for the curb as active, apply a linear template to it, and then add in the pavement existing edge as a reference to the essentially corridor that you created for this linear template, and it stretches it out, and that's how you would do the curbs. So let me go back. Now next thing I want to add are the right-of-way lines, and I'll show you an example utility, and then we'll go ahead and do the view cross sections on each of them. So the next thing we want to do is look at right-of-way lines. In order to get the right-of-way lines to appear in a cross section, you're going to want to go ahead and essentially copy those right-of-way lines in so that we can drape them to the existing terrain and use a certain feature on them as well. So I'm going to attach the right-of-way lines, this one here, choose open. I don't want the and the right-of-way should display in this view. Oops, I attached it to the wrong one again. So let me go back to this view and detach this one. Got to make sure you've got the right view active when you attach these files. So I want to make sure view 1 is active and attach the right-of-way lines. Choose OK, and now I've got them in here. And usually there's probably some cleanup to do on this. So if I'm going to do any manipulation to these right-of-way lines that I got from survey, I'm going to want to copy those into the existing file. So again, I could do the merge to master and click this view, and now I've got those in this file as well. Now I know that this particular data set I want to sort of chain these lines together, so I'm going to use an automatic, and I'll just click this line right here. But before I do that, I want to make sure I leave it on the same level. So I'm going to click this line, whoops, not that one, and then click this one, and it will essentially create a chain on that one. I'll click this element. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I can get a smooth profile along the whole element. And I'll click this next one, and that goes all the way up to there. That's good. And if I click on this one and then click here, it'll create all the way basically the right way lines for me there. Now I'm going to featureize these lines as well. So I go to the set feature, and I'm going to make these intelligent civil elements under the right-of-way existing feature. So I've got a folder out here for right-of-way, and there should be a right-of-way existing lines here, and then all I do is select the elements here, 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 and here, and when I reset, those now become features. And if I hover over them and go to the properties, you see this now has a feature definition right-of-way existing. And I didn't necessarily need to, well, actually, we recommend everything that you put in this file, go ahead and make them features. So the reason I did that is so that when I click on it, I can go to profiles and then open up view 3, get a profile of it. And then if I set this as the active profile, you'll notice that the line string gets drawn in the 3D view, but it's going to be drawn at the existing ground. If you want to offset, and when you cut through this line, it's going to bring up a right-of-way symbol in your cross sections. So I'm going to do one side at just this, basically this existing ground. And then for, let me go ahead and do F4 and make sure I'm looking at all different views here. So I've got my plan view here and my profile view here, my model is here, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll basically select this element, go to the profile view, and let's see if I can get this to come up, and go here, and then I can go ahead and click on this and choose set active, and it displays the right-of-way line on the surface there. And I know a lot of you are saying, but we draw the right-of-way line a little bit below the existing ground. Well, this next tip for drawing utilities, you'll kind of understand what you'd need to do to the right-of-way lines in order to get that to draw below ground as well. And I can show you as well. So I'm going to click on this line here and set active, and now I should get my 3D line string over here. So now I'm still just building this model over here. Let me move this up a little bit. If I choose fit, I'm getting this model built, and it's all based on the existing. So let's talk about utility lines. Now I could do the same thing. I could go ahead and reference in the utility file, and then copy the lines into this file, the 2D lines, and then set the feature to them. Or in this case, I'm just going to draw one. So in order to do that, I'll just draw a line here. And for the time being, it's going to be, let me just draw it on a miscellaneous level for the time being. So when I draw a line, let's just say that this is a, I'll just draw it along here like this. And then I'll draw another one over here. And now I'm going to use the set feature tool right here and make these utility lines. Okay, so for those of you that say, well, this dialog, it's hard to pick. I have to slide back and forth and slide up and down. There is a way to basically pick your features without having to use that dialog. It's actually, if you use the civil tools in the horizontal geometry, there's a toggle bar here. If you set this feature toggle bar, you can essentially pick your feature in this one, and this is stretchable. Whereas if I go back to civil tools, plan development, and if I use this set feature, this little dialog here you cannot modify, but this dialog you can. And if you want to set a feature and make it active, you can go ahead and go to this utilities menu, and I'll pick gas. I'll just pick a 3-inch utility line. And then if I click this button here, that makes it the active feature that I draw. So anytime I go to use a drawing tool or use a set tool, it will essentially use whatever's in this dialog in this dialog. So I'm going to essentially click on this line, reset, and now that's a right-of-way line. And I should have said use active here. So you do have to make sure that this says use active feature. And now if I click again, reset, now it's a 3-inch gas line. I can pick another one over here. Let's call this on the other side. Let's just say it's water, and it's a level D locate. And so as soon as I pick it up here, it changes it here, and then I can click on this line and reset. And now this is a water line. All right, now let's say that we got information on these, and we know that one is 2 foot underground and the other one's 3 foot underground. So when I select the profile for it, what I can use is, again, I can use this utility over here in the civil tools under the vertical geometry. There is a profile offset transition, or just profile offset, but it'll do a transition as well. And so then all I do is click on the element, and I tell it how far I want it to be offset. And in this case, I said it was going to be 2 feet. And if I slide over to one side, it's going to set a 2 foot offset there. And as I slide over to the other side, if you need to zoom out, you can. It'll only pick the limits of it. I could have used the Alt key as well. And then choose mirror no. And now that I have a parallel offset, all I've got to do is select on this line, and instead of making the existing active, I make this one active. And now I've created a 3D line out here, and because it's a utility feature, when we cut a line, when we cut a cross section through it, it's going to draw the little circle. And it also, if you notice, if you hover over it, it has a, it tells you what that particular feature is. And now I'll do the same thing, and I guess I want to profile this other line here. So if I hover over it till I get the tool to come up, choose Open View. Now this one here, maybe I got some locates on it, so I can do a quick line between points. And if I know, you know, I could use the Civil AccuDraw, and I could set elevations on here. And let's say I knew what this elevation was on this side, I could go ahead and toggle this on, and I could set at station 0, the elevation was supposed to be 38.1. Enter. And it places the first point. And then over here, I could do the same thing, and I'm just going to eyeball it here. And let's say I knew that elevation. And then I just click on this line again, and once I have the profile for it, if I go ahead and choose Set Active, now it draws this line out here as well. All right, so now that I have all of this stuff built in my existing feature model file, or the GKLNRDON file, I can go ahead and I'll go ahead and create the cross section for it. So in order to get the cross sections, I'll need a line, and I have a baseline out here in my topo file, so I'll go ahead and attach that. Make sure this view is active again first, and then I'll attach this reference file one more time. Now you see why we built that tool, so that that reference file stays attached, and it just turns on and off with the things that you copy in. So I'm going to attach it again, and then I'm going to use this line to cut a cross section and put it in this view. Okay, so one thing about this is, again, you can use the plans development existing features. There is the view cross section tool right here, and that'll let you go ahead and see what the cross sections are going to look like. But once you select the view cross section tool, it asks you two things: select a corridor or an alignment. Since I didn't create an existing corridor of the whole existing baseline, this whole existing US 98, then I'm just going to select a baseline that's in the topo file. All right, now this is something I just want to point out. If you do not check this field here, station, it will crash on you. I'm just telling you that up front. We found this out in training, that as long as you make sure this box station is checked, and then you can go ahead and eyeball the left and right if you want in the interval, but as long as this station is checked on this baseline in your topo file, it won't crash. So then all I'm going to do is accept the defaults, and if I zoom out, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little blue line that's drawing here. That is my locked 100 left foot offset line. So I'm going to click there. There's my right offset line. Here's my station to begin the cross-section view, and then my interval that I'm going to draw the cross-section view. And then all I have to do is pick the view that I want to draw the cross-section in. And because I had that, and again, of course, it would go ahead and crash on me after I just did that caveat. So that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this clear crash utility and open up the file again, and choose to, in the roadway file, open up this GKLNRDON file. This O2 file is the one I just created. I may have to open up my 4 views again, and I can set this one to, let me try to move this out of the way. I'll set this one to an ISO. View that. This one doesn't necessarily need to be a profile, but what we do want to do is go in and do locate, and go ahead and choose, I think maybe because Civil AccuDraw was on, I don't know. I'll use the left offset, the right offset, station, interval, select this view, And now the cross section shows up, and this is what I'm looking at. If I go ahead and move forward on this, sometimes this blue line will show up, sometimes it won't. But you see that I'm now looking at cutting through this, whatever surfaces I'm cutting through with this line is what's showing up in here. Notice that I've got these two utility lines here because I'm essentially, again, if I move forward, you'll see where the line actually is. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out in this cross-section view was the properties. You can go to the view properties here and you can change the vertical exaggeration if you want this way. And when you click in the view, or actually modify the view, it changes the view parameters. Or I always just use the control key, which changes the horizontal exaggeration, the shift key, which changes the vertical exaggeration. And now you notice how my right-of-way lines here are set right at the existing surface. All I'd have to do is go to those right-of-way line profiles and copy parallel if I wanted to offset it 2 feet or 3 feet, and then set that profile as active, and it would basically shift these down. But because I'm cutting through it, we have a cell that shows up when it's in a cross-section view, which is why you're seeing the right-of-way symbol here and why you're seeing a pipe symbol here. Because what we've done for different features, we have different cells that show up in different modes. So if it's a cross-section mode across this utility line feature, it shows up as a circle. And again, this is a, it's a regular round pipe cell. If it was a 1-to-1 scale, it would show a circle, but because we're showing it exaggerated in one view or the other. And then if I just go ahead and move forward until I get, there's the traffic separator, until I get up here to where this curb feature is, you'll see what that looks like. And I didn't add the curb feature in there, but you would know how to do it. And one more station. And now you see how the curb gets drawn in there. Because this shape is on here, it's just a curb back shape that's being displayed in here. So I could go ahead and in this view turn off the curb backs, and it would turn off in the cross-section view. And actually, I think if you turn it off in the Project Explorer, if you go to the civil standards, you can turn it off in this feature definition for 3D lines. Actually, it's the 2D lines, I believe. Curb and gutter, curb back. If you turn that feature off here, then the next time you change your cross section, it won't be in there. But it's really just levels that are being displayed in there. I don't know what station I got put there, but it looks like I've made a little too many clicks. I was going to show you how you can right click in this view and go to a specific station, but I think you got the gist of it. So that covers essentially the other two parts of this session, where I was creating the right-of-way lines and utilities. Essentially what I did is I copied those into the file. I made a linear feature of them, setting them as a civil feature for existing right-of-way lines and whatever utility line feature. And then I did the draw existing profile, and I set, in this case I set the existing terrain as the active, and it put it right at the terrain. In this one I actually copied an offset and I made that active. And then I opened up the view cross sections and showed you the existing features, and I started to show you some of the navigational methods. But that covers how you can add in here the below ground features on a surface, such as pavements, curbs, and also right-of-way lines and utility lines on surfaces. Right now, the only method for putting in the boring data on existing ground is utilizing the draw cross-section utility within SS3. And once you have the excess cell out there, the typical legacy XX cell, then you can go ahead and use the legacy boring log utility to draw those on there. And you'll have basically all the existing data that you need on your existing cross sections. And so that covers the existing terrain and existing features in SS3. I know it wasn't as smooth as it is sometimes, but hopefully you got something out of it. This session is recorded and will be posted within the next couple of days. If the questions don't get addressed, we always respond to them in a document file, and the document file is always posted on the website with the recording as well as the PowerPoint. Once again, thank you for attending.